Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this short presentation. The picture on this slide is actually a pile of books in Buenos Aires. I didn't take the photo myself. You always have to be in the right place at the right time to take such a photo, and I've never been to South America. It's a modern-day Tower of Babel, itself an ancient origin myth that explains why the world speaks different languages. In this presentation, I will briefly deal with the value of being competent in some of the world's lingua franca, but will mainly focus on how officers might become so in the current context. So let us begin. I would often ask my university students this question. They'd never thought about it, at least not in these terms. But their answers were immediate. They could easily rattle off a list of things. And I'm sure those of you listening to this presentation could too. Of course, the other side of this question asks what you cannot do if you don't speak English. Living in Tashkent and not speaking Uzbek or Russian, I'm very aware of the fact that my potential circle of friends is determined by one factor before others come into play. I miss out on daily news, watching TV, listening to local music, chatting with people I meet casually, understanding the cries of the fruit and vegetable sailors who wander my neighbourhood, and the messages blaring from police cars. But I am an inner circle person, a native speaker of English, and through no fault of my own have this incredible privilege. Living in Tashkent, I constantly meet Uzbek people who speak English, at the gym, at the supermarket, at concerts, at restaurants and bars, and at the bank. And even expat groups function online and in person in English, with a lot of expanding circle people communicating in a foreign language, the lingua franca, English. Learners of English are from Kakur's expanding circle. While English might be the only truly international lingua franca, there are others which function across vast areas of the planet. Anyone who is competent in even two of these has the potential to participate in the worlds of many millions of people. My circle of circles here presents some of the advantages of speaking a lingua franca. These apply to individuals, but also to institutions and to whole countries, to have your population educated in foreign languages. There isn't time to go through them all. Let's take the grey one at the top, self-respect. An individual who speaks English well knows that they can represent themselves, their family, their employers in various situations. They can enjoy reading, films, comedy, music, sport, and form friendships in person and online. They can even learn in English. This might involve self-study or studying at an institution, online or in another country. And the country could be from any of Kakuru's circles. Let's just take the other grey circle, a seat at the table. This refers to being able to represent yourself, not having to send a deputy or employ an interpreter. You can magically appear anywhere in the world these days without leaving home, to attend a meeting, a workshop, a conference. You can listen, react and reply and respond to other people's contributions to discussions. You are very present. I started living in Czechoslovakia in 1990, when many thousands of Russian teachers were suddenly redundant. Many thousands of them retrained as English teachers, having to learn English in the process. The transition from being a Russian satellite state for decades to becoming an independent country presented a great many challenges. Internet was a distant dream, so much of the training and retraining was quickly set up by British Council and some American and Canadian Peace Corps. 30 years later, the Internet is a global phenomenon. Despite not always being fast and reliable, it has changed the lives of millions of people. Those growing up as digital natives, that is, people who do not know a world without the Internet, are particularly competent. Many digital immigrants are also extremely competent users of ICT resources. We very often know quite different, useful and important things about software and websites that younger people do not know. Many teachers and officers are digital immigrants who need to be provided with good equipment and training in using it. Once they can manage these tools and resources, they can participate in e-learning language training anywhere, anytime. With anytime, anywhere training, education extends beyond the classroom and the traditional workday. Learning management systems such as Moodle, Blackboard, Brightspace permit teachers to create lockstep courses in which all the participants progress more or less at the same rate. Alternatively, courses can build in a great deal of flexibility that allows participants to work when they can. This is just as useful for busy professionals as it is for people who are bored in the evenings and weekends, who yearn for something to do during their free time, who are hungry to learn. Learning management systems allow course participants to track and manage their own learning. Instructional videos and texts can be viewed repeatedly as necessary. On the left here is the top of the teacher training course I created for the English teachers at the MOD and the National Guard in Tashkent that ran from January to March this year. Each week had 6 tasks that included watching instructional videos, reading specific sections from the teacher training books we were using at the time, and from the Versatile wiki, which is at the same site. The teachers were doing quizzes, some teaching quizzes, others testing quizzes, contributing new information to our course wiki, reflecting on their learning, discussing professional experiences related to the unit's topic, and uploading examples of their work. There were also live Zoom sessions with me and with 2 testing experts from the UK. The tasks needed to be done within that week so that they could participate in discussion forums around the same time, and so that the course was completed in time to move on. The teachers participated in this course on their home computers and mobile phones. Not everybody had adequate internet connections or equipment. It was quite time-consuming, and the teachers were doing it in their own time on top of their normal daily work. A couple of teachers would have been happy with more than the course provided, but most found the content adequate, if not overwhelming at times. With some adaptation, this course could be reused by other institutions anytime, anywhere. Now, that was teacher training. As regards online language courses, there was no opportunity or requirement for this year, but I have worked on online language courses in the past and will do so again in the future. A language course can use the same e-learning tools but to different ends, as the focus is obviously on teaching the specific aspects of language that come under the general headings of skills and systems. The hierarchy of language in the middle of this diagram depicts the layers of language that are functioning simultaneously in any text, spoken or written. When we are teaching in any of these 4 systems, we are working with aspects of the elements that make up the hierarchy of language. In the CEFR, the 4 systems come under the heading Communicative Language Competences. As the black arrow at the top here shows, we are working with the 4 skills when we get to the top of the hierarchy of language, that is, text. In the CEFR, skills come under the heading of Communicative Language Activities and Strategies. If we take the hierarchy of language from the middle of the previous diagram and we identify aspects of language that exist at each level, we get a sample of linguistic topics. Every one of these can be isolated for teaching units. These cover 3 of the 4 systems, namely grammar, vocabulary, and functional language. The 4th, pronunciation, can be taught in isolation, and it can also be taught in concert with grammar, vocabulary, and functional language. All 4 systems can be taught and tested online. The teaching units may consist of a short video, some exercises, and a quiz. There is a lot of software which gamifies the teaching of grammar and vocabulary to make it more challenging and motivating. Even more interesting and stimulating are discovery learning activities. In these, students are required to observe features of language in a text and work out the patterns and relationships in language for themselves. Their conclusions are either right or wrong. As well as doing quizzes based on video presentations, the students in an e-learning course can be asked questions such as these, where they engage with a text that they may later use in a skills lesson. As we saw in the diagram previously, the text level in the hierarchy of language is skills work. How much e-learning work can be done in an e-learning course without a teacher? Theoretically, ideally, in reality, teachers need not be involved in teaching the four systems at all. There is no shortage of reading and listening material available for a wide range of levels. There is no shortage of software that provides estimates of CEFR levels of texts and other readability statistics. There is no shortage of activity types that can be conducted online to develop students' competences in these skills. But we can develop a more sophisticated taxonomy of activity types when we use a more sophisticated breakdown of the four skills. The CEFR allocates different types of activities for the four skills, depending on whether or not they are conducted alone, in which case the message goes in one direction only. A lot of language teaching material treats text as one-way sources of information, as we see when the only activity provided is a set of comprehension questions. The second level has a different range of activity types, when the skills involve interacting with people, in which case they are bidirectional. This typically fosters some negotiation of meaning, which results in people reshaping, adjusting their view of the world, an aspect of knowledge creation. The third level that the CEFR refers to is mediation, which is when messages are re-expressed in different ways for a variety of purposes. This includes translation and converting one source of information into another, such as when a series of texts is transformed into a presentation or a poster. This rather more sophisticated alignment of the four skills provides a framework upon which a language teaching syllabus can be built. In the context of e-learning, we must explore ways of giving students experience in these. Enter Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy provides sets of verbs that a teacher or tester can use when they are designing a task. The verbs are grouped according to the cognitive level at which the students are required to function and according to the type of knowledge involved. This table has one verb per cell, but the full list contains dozens of verbs for each cell. The subject of the verbs is always the students. The students will describe, the students will rank, the students will plan, etc. As soon as a teacher decides that the students will classify, for example, a task structure emerges. The last of the knowledge dimensions is metacognitive, which is also referred to as learning to learn and learner autonomy. Learner training is not a particular feature of e-learning, but it is particularly valuable in e-learning because it helps make the learning visible. Students make conscious decisions about their learning. We can train our learners to be quite creative too. Here you can see how information and knowledge can be presented to show patterns and relationships graphically. The process of creating these is a strong learning experience, not only in terms of language learning, but in the process of clarifying the meanings and the content that they express. If we want the course participants, whether cadets or officers, engaged for a long period of time, some acts of creativity will help sustain their motivation. Such things are best co-created, that is, as group work, and indeed the teachers on my course earlier this year did a good deal of co-creating, sometimes online, sometimes they sat together, then uploaded a photo of their creation for their colleagues to critique. The motivation of course participants is of the utmost importance. Intrinsic motivation is within us. There are internal rewards. We just want to do something. Extrinsic motivation is based on receiving rewards. We will get something out of it if we do it. I imagine that officers engaged in long-term language learning will have a healthy mix of both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. But now I'm starting to imagine that language teachers are wondering what is left for them to do if an e-learning course can offer all of the things which have been mentioned so far. Arthur C. Clarke was the great British science writer, science fiction writer, inventor, and TV presenter, and was known as the prophet of the space age. At the time when Clarke made this quote, education was very much focused on filling students' minds with information, when computers were showing their potential to be useful sources of information. But of course, expert professional teachers are responsible for a lot more than providing access to information or pouring information into their students' heads. Teachers facilitate knowledge creation by providing students with information and opportunities to process it, negotiate it, mediate it. Students combine multiple sources of information with what they already know, and if they are engaged in discovery learning, they may even be finding patterns and relationships that form their own information. Here are some of the essential jobs that teachers can do while an online language course is in progress. You will notice that none of them involve teaching skills or systems. The online platform takes care of all of this. So we want the teachers to work as tutors, provide students with feedback, to monitor the forum discussions, to check the test analyses to see what students the problems are having. They can organize groups of students to work together, identify students who might need more help, evaluate the course and the course material, observe student progress and intervene when people are having problems. Direct the more able students to supplementary resources. There's always a need for ongoing needs analysis and preparing students for specific missions if the students are going or to participate on an international meeting, for example. When I was in my 20s, several decades before the internet was even a thing, I studied German and Italian at university by correspondence. At the beginning of each semester, a large box would arrive containing all the course material for me to work through according to a schedule, which was also in the box. There were dates when we had to post things to the university for teachers' feedback, but mostly we were working through grammar and vocabulary books and listening to cassette tapes, alone. Twice a year we had to visit the university for a 1-week intensive course. Even in these internet days, I would still recommend this. A week off from work to do a language course is an excellent intrinsic motivation. There are many variables to take into account when designing the structure of such a platform. The e-learning courses and resources that I have in mind are quite modular. This means that a student, with the help of their tutor, can design their own path through the material that will lead the student to their intermediate goals. This presentation has been the tip of the iceberg. I hope it has provided some food for thought about the very realistic potential for online language training to contribute to the officer's English competence. Nobody would deny that it is expensive to set up such a platform, and it would be in a constant state of evolution. But once it is set up and running, hundreds of people could be participating in such courses with relatively low running costs. The student-teacher ratio would be very different from the normal classroom. As training that takes place anywhere on time, the course participants need never miss another lesson. Thank you.